Good day, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about how to determine the slope of a line given 2 points. Slope of a line given 2 points. To determine the slope of a line given 2 points, we're going to use the formula m is equal to y sub 2 minus y sub 1 all over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. M here is the slope. Let's try this given. Determine the slope of a line given point A with coordinates -2 and 5 and point B with the coordinates 1 and -1. Again, we're going to use the formula m is equal to y sub 2 minus y sub 1 all over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. To make it easier, let's write two numbers, 1 and 2. Under number 1, we're going to write a subscript number 1 beside the x and y coordinates. Under number 2, we're going to write a subscript number 2 beside the x and y coordinates. Now let's say we're going to put point A under the number 1. The coordinates of point A, -2 and 5. And under number 2, we're going to put point B. The coordinates of point B, 1 and -1. Now let's just follow the pattern. X sub 1 here is -2. Y sub 1 is 5. X sub 2 is 1. And y sub 2 is -1. Having this information, we can substitute these values to our formula. Let's start with the y sub 2. Y sub 2 is -1. Then the operation, subtraction. Y sub 1 is +5. Now let's move on to x sub 2. Our x sub 2 is 1 minus x sub 1 is -2. After substituting the values, now let's just simplify. -1 minus 5 is equal to -6. And 1 minus -2 is equal to 3. Now we have -6 over 3. The simplified form of -6 over 3 is -2. Our slope is -2. Let's try the same example. Determine the slope of a line given point A, -2 and 5, and point B, 1 and -1. Again, we're going to use the formula of the slope y sub 2 minus y sub 1 all over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And we're going to follow this pattern. On our first example, we put point A under the number 1. In this example, we're going to put point B under 1. The coordinates of point B, 1 and -1. And we're going to put point A under number 2. The coordinates of point A, -2 and 5. Let's see what will happen. Now our x sub 1 is 1, y sub 1 is -1, x sub 2 is -2, y sub 2 is +5. Now, let's substitute these values to our formula. Let's start with y sub 2, that is +5. Then the operation, then y sub 1 is -1. Next, x sub 2, that is -2, minus x sub 1, that is 1. We now have 5 minus -1 all over -2 minus 1. Now, let's simplify. 5 minus -1 is +6. And -2 minus 1 is -3. And the simplified form of 6 over -3 is -2. Our slope is also -2. So meaning, even if we interchange the points, the result will be the same. Let's try a different given. Determine the slope of a line given point A is equal to -1, -5, and point B is 3 and 7. Again, we're going to use the formula m is equal to y sub 2 minus y sub 1 all over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And we're going to follow this pattern. Now, let's put point A under number 1. The coordinates of point A, -1 and -5. And point B under number 2. The coordinates of point B, 3 and 7. We now have x sub 1 as -1, y sub 1 -5, x sub 2 is 3, and y sub 2 is 7. Now, let's substitute these values to our formula. Let's start with the y sub 2, that is 7, minus y sub 1, that is -5. Next, x sub 2, that is 3, minus x sub 1, that is -1. Now, let's simplify. 7 minus -5 is 12. And 3 minus -1 is 4. And the simplified form of 12 over 4 is 3. Our slope is 3. Let's try another example. Determine the slope of a line given point A, -1 and -6, and point B, -4, 15. Again, we're going to use the formula and follow the pattern. We're going to put point A under 1. The coordinates are -1 and -6. And point B under 2. The coordinates -4 and 15. Following the pattern, we will have -1 as x sub 1. For y sub 1, that is -6. X sub 2 is -4. Y sub 2 is +15. Now, substitute these values to our formula. Let's start with y sub 2, that is 15, minus y sub 1, negative 6. X sub 2, that is negative 4, minus x sub 1 is negative 1. Now let's simplify. 15 minus negative 6 is 21. And negative 4 minus negative 1 is negative 3. The simplified form of 21 over negative 3 is negative 7. Our slope is negative 7. Another example. Determine the slope of a line given point A is equal to negative 2 and 3, and point B is equal to negative 5 and 4. Again, we're going to use the formula of slope and this pattern. Under 1, we're going to put the coordinates of point A, negative 2 and 3. And under 2, we're going to put the coordinates of point B, negative 5 and 4. We're just going to do the same what we did earlier. X sub 1 is negative 2, y sub 1 is 3, x sub 2 is negative 5, and y sub 2 is 4. We're going to substitute these values to our formula. Let's start with y sub 2, that is 4, then the operation, and y sub 1, that is 3, and for x sub 2, that is negative 5, then the operation. Next, x sub 1, that is negative 2. Now let's simplify. 4 minus 3 is 1, and negative 5 minus negative 2 is negative 3. We now have 1 over negative 3. 1 over negative 3 is already in its simplest form. Let's just rewrite 1 over negative 3 to negative 1/3. The negative sign will be the sign of the whole fraction. So we now have the slope negative 1/3. And that's how you determine the slope of a line given 2 points.